As you may have recently seen, at the last round of Hot Pit, I completely grenaded the transmission out of this thing. And while we could rebuild this thing, I've got a better idea. And that better idea is going to require a lot of work. We've got the V8, we've got the Pro Car chassis, but there's one thing all the serious drift cars have that I don't, and that is a dog box transmission. Now before we can hear those clunky gear shifts and the loud whine of straight cut gears, we've got to make some room for this new transmission. Now we don't actually need to make more room for the transmission itself. You saw me holding it, you know that transmission's not very big. It's actually quite a bit smaller than a stock trans. It's a little bit smaller than the trans we had in this thing. What we need room for is the shifter. Most vehicles from the factory are equipped with a top mount shifter, meaning the shifter comes out of the top of the transmission, which would put it right here. And while they do sell dog boxes that are top shift, they are so much more expensive than a side shift, and that's what we got, which means the shifter and the shift linkage run on the side of the transmission and require a bit more room on that one side. So the goal here is to cut out enough room so everything can work, but I also want to make it serviceable. So we're going to be making a bit more room, but also putting in some removable access panels on the side and maybe on the top. So if anything does ever happen, we don't have to pull the whole transmission out to look at it. Let's say you break a shift linkage or a bolt comes loose and the linkage pops off. It'd be way easier to unbolt a little panel here and take a look at everything rather than having to climb up under the car and possibly pull the trans out. So this is going to buy us more room and a lot more serviceability. Now a dog box transmission is something I've wanted in this car since we first did the swap. Even before that, I had transmission issues with the stock CD behind a VQ. Fingers crossed this fixes any and all transmission problems we've ever had. No more misshifts, no more blown up transmissions, and a bunch of really cool sounds. If you're wondering how that's going to work or what the difference is between a normal street car transmission and a so-called dog box, the main difference is the gears inside the transmission. A standard road car transmission has helical gears. They're basically gears cut at an angle. So when they go together really smoothly. They kind of fall into place a little bit better, and they're very quiet. A dog box, like you would find in most drift cars, NASCAR, circle track cars, things like that, they have straight cut gears, meaning it looks like your normal cog gear setup. When shifted, these gears smash together and then work. Now these are way stronger gears than what you'd find in a street car transmission, even though they still can break. But by shifting like this, you get way more tooth engagement, which is what makes this a stronger connection. And because they're like this, they're very loud. So that's where you get the whining you hear in most race cars. Another upside is overall serviceability. Because this transmission is just more simple by nature, it is way easier to fix if things do go wrong. These 4 bolts on the back come off, the tail housing gets removed, and you can actually pull the whole gear stack out as one assembly, and then you can take whatever you need apart. So if you just need to swap one gear out because you blew 3rd gear up, you can do that. This is kind of a sealed unit, and in order to do that, everything has to come apart, and it is way more complicated in here because it was designed to be in a road car. This also has this nice top plate here. So let's say you start hearing a scary noise, you can rip this off and take a look at all the gears and everything that works in here to try to pinpoint what's actually wrong. The only service window on this trans is this tiny one up top, which is kind of useless because you can only really see the start of the shift linkage. Oh, and did I mention this thing's quite a bit lighter, so it's easier to pull out of the car and it saves us a little weight. But enough of the nerdy stuff. Let's get to cutting and start test fitting this thing. Little side note, if you're ever gonna cut sheet metal out of your car with a cutoff wheel or anything that throws sparks, make sure you cover up your glass. If you're like me and don't have a welding blanket, you can just use a beach towel, which you may have seen in those earlier clips. I just taped a beach towel up on the windshield. That way when we're cutting this thing, no sparks go into the glass. Those little sparks from cutoff wheels will pit the glass and put tiny little marks in the glass that can never be removed. It's really annoying. Ask me how I know. It's out! First things first, cut the hydro e-brake mount out. No matter what we do with the trans tunnel, this is gonna have to get moved because I think that's right about where the shifter linkage is gonna go. So cut this off. Now we can start digging into that trans tunnel a little bit more. I don't wanna cut too much right away because I don't have the shifter for the transmission yet, so I don't exactly know where everything's gonna live, but we can get some preliminary cuts done. So the goal here is to follow this curvature around. I don't want to just cut a square because of the way this line kind of follows it. I'd like to keep this structure intact because we're not going to be cutting anything on this side of the trans tunnel. And what we cut on this side, I don't think is going to come this far back, although it might. But regardless, I'd like to follow this bit of a curve through here just so it looks nice. So let me show you a little trick on how we're going to do that, because I'll be the first to tell you I'm not that skilled with a cutoff wheel to make this nice and around. Drill bit, hole saw, kind of eyeball right where I want that, and that'll get the job done. Now, definitely not necessary, but it is going to make this cut look a little bit better. This one wasn't perfect because, again, I'm just eyeballing it, but we'll just come back in with a flat disc and clean up this last like 1/8 of an inch that I left. So let's cut it out. I think we're off to a good start. Like how that radius turned out. And if you're looking at this thinking, wow, you definitely didn't need to cut that much, you're probably right, but I kind of wanted to. That trans tunnel has been patched up 2 or 3 times because this car was originally an automatic, and the top of the trans tunnel where the shifter goes is different on an automatic chassis versus a manual chassis. So when I first did the manual swap on this car, before I even got it running, I'm talking one of the first or second videos I put on this channel, I had to cut the trans tunnel apart to get it to work. And then when we did the LS swap, I welded in a plate where I originally cut it and cut a different hole because the shifter was in a different place. So that trans tunnel's been cut, patched 2 or 3 times. If we're gonna cut it all up and make this new transmission work, I would rather cut a little bit more, put it back together, looking real nice and professional. I'm confident we'll end up with a better finished product if we just take the extra steps now. Now, as far as where the shifter's gonna go and how much of the side of the tunnel we're gonna have to cut out, it's kind of hard to know because I don't have the full shifter assembly, but I do have the trans, and it has the shift leakage mounts that stick out of the side of the transmission. So I'm thinking if we bolt the transmission up, I can get a good idea of at least where they're gonna go and maybe how far forward or how far back we're gonna have to cut to make room for the shifter. And I can always cut a little bit and then we'll cut more when I actually have the shifter in hand. Update, it's been like a week or so. I ended up cutting way more of the trans tunnel out. Alex is here. We have the shifter on the trans. We made some shift linkage, and I think we're ready to put the trans in and see if I cut enough. This is what we're looking at with the trans tunnel as of now. As you can see, I cut a lot out, which hopefully is enough, but it might not be. And then we've got our dog box with the shifter now. We had to make a new shift rod. Pretty straightforward stuff. Looks sweet, and I think it's ready to go in. Do you have anything to say?
Let's get your car running so I don't have to work on it at the track.
Sounds good. This is where the cardboard design begins. Final test fit with the cardboard. Seat fits. A little bit of room to spare. Shifter's gonna work. We were just mocking up the hydro. I think we're good. There's now a giant hole in my car with way more of the floor cut out. It's time to start getting these panels in, but first we're gonna bead roll them, which is a process I'm very excited to figure out. So been drawing out little designs for the bead roller. This is probably more complicated than it should have been, but you know, we're learning. We'll see how it turns out. This is a bead roller from Eastwood. It just mounts in a vise, and it was pretty straightforward. I would definitely say this is a 2-person job. It really helped having 1 person crank and another person guide the material through the bead roller. One thing to make sure of, since this isn't a huge piece of equipment, is you need to be careful with your designs and kind of do a dry run to make sure you can actually move the panel all the way through and get through your full design without running into a corner of the bead roller or the truck bed in my case, or wherever you have your vise mounted. So we did the bead rolls on the top panel. We're gonna do something a little bit different on the bottom panel, which means changing the way this bead roller works. What are you doing, Alex?
Well, like you just said, we are, instead of doing like a normal bead, we are doing a recession for this panel. So we're gonna sink this whole center section down. That way our removable panel will be flush when we bolt it on.
So these dies that he's putting on here will actually make a recess in the panel instead of a raised ridge like we have in this panel. Like you said, we're doing that because we're going to make an access panel for the side of the trans tunnel. So if we ever need to get to the shift linkage or something, we could do it without removing the trans, without crawling under the car. It should make serviceability a bit better. While he's working on that, I'm going to be in the car because I'm going to make a brace for our hydro handbrake. Hydro handbrakes see a lot of force, and since we cut a bunch of this tunnel out, although we are rebuilding it with sheet metal, it is just that sheet metal. So I'm going to add some 1/8" strap steel just in like an L bracket right where the handbrake's going to go. That'll give us a lot more strength to build off of. Let me update you guys on where we're at now. We have been working. Alex is about to tack in our upper panel. So we've got some holes drilled. These are going to be spot welds. We have the bracing going in from here, diagonal across. Our hydro will sit kind of in this area. again, super stoked on how that turned out. While he is tacking that in, I'm working on the side panel. So we've got our recessed dimple die. I'm gonna cut this out with some little ears here where we'll put riv nuts so we can bolt on a cover panel. So this will still be sealed, but like I said, we can unbolt that if we need it. Okay, it's been a few days. Time to update you guys because the trans tunnel has really come a long ways. Don't mind the mess of the wiring. I'm just getting back to putting it all back together because it was all out of the way to build this thing, but check that out. Super happy with how this came out. Of course, we got our removable panel down there. Eventually I'll do like a cool design or something, but for now that'll work. Smooth it all out. Of course, hit it with some Steel-It. Stoked on that. Next steps, I need to mount our shift boot. That way we can get the hydro in place, which means getting a seat back in this thing. So let's keep working. All right, so we got our seat in, harness is in, hydro is welded in, our shift boot retainer thingy is in. We can actually put the shift boot on now that all the welding's done. Just have to make a new line for the hydro. Fittings were a little bit different on the hydro line, and I'm gonna route the line differently. So I thought I could bend up the old one, but it ended up just looking ugly. So threw it away, redoing the line, gonna redo the fittings, and I think the bulk of the work is done. We officially have a dog box transmission in my car. Unfortunately, we're not gonna be able to drive it. We're not gonna be able to hear that beautiful clunk or the whining of the gears just yet. I'm still waiting on a drive shaft, and it's probably a few more days out. So I guess that'll be in the next video, but regardless, I'm so excited that this happened. I wish it didn't happen the way it did, but just goes to show, I've probably mentioned this a million times because it's a lesson I still haven't learned. Buy the right thing the first time. I wish I just bought a dog box from the very beginning. Granted, there wasn't a transmission this affordable on the market when I needed a transmission, so the only option was to go new or to spend way more money. But that brings up the point that if you can wait and build a car slow, you're gonna end up with a way better car. So don't do what I'm doing and be building your car throughout an entire season of competitive drifting, because then you end up in situations like this. But whatever, beside the point, we've got a dog box in this thing and I cannot wait to drive it. I figure I could at least show you guys the shift boot now that everything's installed. I think that's really gonna wrap this all up. If you're curious, this is a Joe's Racing SFI shift boot. I had an SFI shift boot before, but it didn't have these little snap buttons, so it was difficult to remove. It was literally just fabric that I had self-tapped into the trans tunnel. And every time you remove a self-tapper, the threads get worse, and I don't know, it just wasn't ideal. The placement wasn't ideal, so I spent the extra money, got a new one, and now we have this nice little retainer, so we can just slide that right on through and snap this guy in. Might as well give you guys a good look at the trans tunnel completely done. So there is that patch panel there. Still have to make it fit just a smidge better. You can see there's a little gap there, but overall looks really good. That's gonna be super handy if we ever have to service that shift linkage. Got our heel plate in there. I had to trim that since the trans tunnel's a lot wider than it was. And of course, you guys saw the top. Smoothed out real nicely, just did a light metal finish on it, and then of course painted it with Steel-It. Fire suppression nozzle mounted in place. And I think we're looking real good. I wish I was driving it in this video, but it's gonna have to wait. Hopefully that drive shaft comes in the next couple days, because we're less than 2 weeks away from the final round of Hot Pit Auto Fest, where this thing has to be at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. And fingers crossed we do all right, because man, it has been a rough season of drifting. I wish this wasn't the last round, because I feel like we finally have most of the kinks worked out with the car, the new transmission and everything, but there's only one way to find out. I'm really hoping everything comes together in the next couple days here and we can get a test day at Apple Valley or something before going to Vegas. With the way things have gone this entire year, who knows? All I can do is cross my fingers, hope for the best, because I would really love to end this season on a positive note. Even if it's just one win or a reliable car throughout the whole event, I'm going with no expectations. I just want to have fun and end the season off having a good time. So hope to see you guys there. November 1st, Las Vegas Motor Speedway. You can still get your tickets. If you want a little discount, I'll put a code down in the comments. That's going to be a wrap on this one. Thank you guys as always for watching, and of course, I'll see you in the next one.